The stars looked different when you knew they were watching you. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Voice and stared at the massive structure ahead. Nexus Prime stretched across space like a metal city, its towers and domes glowing with lights from a dozen different alien races. Each section belonged to one of the elder species, the ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Jake had been to Nexus Prime before, but never like this. Never with such urgency in the message that brought him here. The transmission had come directly from the Elder Council itself, marked with priority codes that meant drop everything and come now. In 20 years of serving in the Human Diplomatic Corps, Jake had never seen anything like it. "Captain, we're getting docking instructions from Elder Control," said Lieutenant Kevin Brooks from his position at Communications.
Kevin was young, maybe 25, and this was his first time seeing the heart of Elder power.
His eyes were wide as he watched the alien ships moving around them. "Follow their guidance," Jake told him. He turned to Commander Lisa Bennett, who stood nearby reviewing data on her tablet. Lisa was the best xenobiologist in the human fleet, and Jake trusted her knowledge of alien cultures more than anyone else. "What do you think this is about?" Lisa shook her head slowly. "I've been going through everything we know about recent Elder activities. There's been unusual movement in their deep space fleets. Some kind of mobilization, but they haven't told anyone what for. The fact that they're calling us specifically is very strange." Jake knew what she meant. Humans were the newest members of galactic society. They had only made contact with the Elder races 60 years ago, and had only been granted limited membership in the galactic community 30 years ago. The Elders treated humans like children who needed guidance and supervision. They had never asked for human help with anything important. The docking went smoothly, and soon Jake found himself walking through corridors that had been built when Earth was still in its ice age. The walls were covered with symbols from the original Elder civilization, the Veltar, whose crystal-based technology powered much of Nexus Prime. Other sections showed the flowing organic designs of the HFY, or the geometric patterns that the energy-based Cathara preferred. Elder Primus Velthanor waited for them in the main council chamber. The Veltar leader was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly in the chamber's dim light. His large eyes fixed on Jake as the human delegation entered. Behind him stood representatives from the other Elder races, their various forms creating an intimidating display of alien power. Captain Morrison, Velthanor spoke in accented English, a courtesy that surprised Jake. Usually the Elders insisted on using the galactic trade language. "We thank you for responding so quickly to our summons." Jake nodded respectfully. The message indicated this was a matter of extreme urgency. "How can humanity assist the Elder Council?" Velthanor gestured to a large display that activated behind him. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with a dark spot spreading along one edge like an infection. "We face a crisis unlike anything in recorded history. This anomaly appeared 6 months ago at the galaxy's rim. It grows larger every day, consuming everything in its path." Lisa stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming diplomatic protocol. "What exactly is being consumed? Matter, energy, space itself?" "All of it," replied Elder Zeth Moran of the Rixhai, a warrior species with thick armor plating instead of skin. "Our greatest scientist cannot explain it. Our most powerful weapons cannot stop it. If it continues to expand at current rates, it will reach the core systems within 5 years. Jake felt a chill run through him. The Elders controlled technology that humans could barely understand. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days. Their weapons could destroy stars, their shields could protect entire worlds. If they couldn't handle this threat, what hope did anyone have? "We have tried everything," continued another Elder, this one from the hive-minded Telnari. Her voice carried the harmonic undertones of someone speaking for billions of linked minds. "Our combined fleets, our most advanced technologies, our deepest knowledge. Nothing works. The anomaly continues to grow." Velthanor fixed his gaze on Jake again. "This is why we have called you here, Captain Morrison. Humanity has shown a talent for unusual solutions. Your species thinks in ways that we do not. You find answers where others see only problems." Jake exchanged a glance with Lisa. This was unprecedented. The Elders asking humans for help, admitting that their ancient wisdom had failed them. It should have been flattering, but something about the situation felt wrong. "What exactly are you asking us to do?" Jake asked carefully. "Lead an expedition to study the anomaly." Velthenor replied. Take your best scientists, your most advanced ships. Find a solution that we have missed. But understand, Captain, this mission will require full cooperation with the Elder Council. All data must be shared immediately. All decisions must be approved by our representatives. This is too important to allow for human unpredictability. There it was. Even in their desperation, the Elders still couldn't trust humans to act independently. They wanted human creativity and innovation. But under Elder control and supervision, Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. I will need to consult with my superiors on Earth, he said. A decision of this magnitude cannot be made by a ship captain alone. Of course, Velthenor agreed, though Jake caught a flash of impatience in the Elder's eyes. But please understand the urgency. Every day of delay means more systems consumed by this darkness. As the meeting concluded and the human delegation was escorted back to their ship, Jake couldn't shake his unease. Lisa walked beside him, equally troubled. Something about this doesn't add up, she said quietly as they entered the docking bay. The Elders have ruled the galaxy for 50 millennia. They've faced crises before. Why are they so desperate now? Kevin joined them as they boarded Terra's voice. Captain, I monitored Elder communications during the meeting. There's a lot of encrypted chatter between their ships. More than you'd expect for a simple diplomatic meeting. Jake nodded grimly. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to get home and figure out what the Elders aren't telling us. As Terra's voice pulled away from Nexus Prime, Jake stared back at the massive station. The Elders claimed to be seeking human help, but their demands for control suggested they still saw humans as useful tools rather than true partners. Whatever this crisis was, Jake had the growing feeling that humanity was walking into something much more complicated than a simple rescue mission. The stars looked different when you knew they were watching you, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the Elders were hiding something important behind their desperate plea for help. The emergency session of the Human Space Council met in the underground chambers beneath Geneva, where Earth's most important decisions had been made for the past century. Admiral Patricia Hayes sat at the head of the long table, her weathered face showing the strain of 3 days without sleep. Around her sat the representatives of humanity's far-flung colonies and the leaders of the space fleet. Dr. Alexander Kane stood at the main display, his wild gray hair reflecting his excitement as he presented his analysis of the Elder data. Alex had spent his entire career studying alien technology, trying to understand how civilizations that were already ancient when humans learned to make fire had developed such incredible capabilities. The readings don't make sense, Alex said, pointing at the swirling patterns on the screen. The Elders are calling this a dark matter anomaly, but dark matter doesn't behave like this. It doesn't consume regular matter, it doesn't expand exponentially, and it certainly doesn't have the organized structure we're seeing here. Admiral Hayes leaned forward. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying this isn't natural. Someone or something created this anomaly, and whoever did it has technology that makes Elder science look primitive. Alex switched to another display showing energy readings. Look at these patterns. They're too regular, too controlled. This is artificial, and it's incredibly sophisticated. Governor Stephen Walsh of the Mars colonies shook his head. That's impossible. The Elders are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their technology is 50,000 years old. What could be more advanced than that? Before Alex could answer, Lieutenant Colonel Sandra Price entered the chamber. Sandra ran humanity's intelligence operations, and the grim expression on her face told everyone that she brought bad news. She activated her own display, showing images from deep space. We sent covert reconnaissance missions into Elder space while Captain Morrison was at Nexus Prime, Sandra said. What we found changes everything. The Elders have been destroying archaeological sites throughout the galaxy. Ancient ruins, old databases, anything that predates their rise to power. The room fell silent. Admiral Hayes spoke first. Why would they do that? Because they're hiding something, Sandra replied. She showed images of blasted worlds, their surfaces scarred by weapons fire. These aren't recent battles. This destruction is old, systematic, and thorough. The Elders have been erasing evidence of whoever came before them. Dr. Raymond Cole, humanity's leading archaeologist, had been studying the images on his tablet. Raymond had always been fascinated by galactic history, and he had spent years trying to piece together the story of the galaxy's past from the fragments that remained. Now he looked up with a startled expression. I've seen references to something called the First Builders in some of the oldest databases we've found, Raymond said. The elders always claimed these were myths, stories told by primitive cultures. But what if they weren't myths? What if the First Builders were real and the elders destroyed them? Admiral Hayes felt a chill run through her. Are you suggesting that the elders built their civilization on genocide? I'm suggesting that maybe they didn't build it at all, Raymond replied. The hyperspace network that allows faster-than-light travel, the energy systems that power their cities, the shields that protect their worlds. What if all of that came from the First Builders? What if the elders just stole it? Back in space, Captain Morrison had received new orders from Earth through encrypted channels. He was to continue investigating the anomaly, but he was not to share key findings with the Elder Council. His ship had been joined by the research vessel New Horizon, commanded by Dr. Jennifer Walsh, humanity's best field archaeologist. Jennifer had spent the journey studying every piece of data they had about the anomaly and the surrounding space. Something about the Elder story bothered her. If this threat was as dangerous as they claimed, why weren't they evacuating the nearby systems? Why were their deep space fleets positioning themselves around human territory, instead of focusing on the anomaly? Captain Morrison, Jennifer called over the communication system between their ships. I need to show you something. Jake joined Jennifer aboard New Horizon, where she had set up a detailed analysis station. She showed him a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with the anomaly marked in red. Look at the expansion pattern, Jennifer said. The elders told us it was growing randomly, consuming everything in its path. But that's not what the data shows. It's expanding in a very specific way, following certain paths through space while avoiding others. Jake studied the pattern. She was right. The anomaly wasn't spreading like an explosion or an infection. It was following routes, almost like it was following some kind of map. There's more, Jennifer continued. She brought up another display showing energy readings. The anomaly isn't destroying the space it moves through. It's changing it, reorganizing it. The energy signatures suggest that whatever is happening in there, it's incredibly organized and purposeful. So this isn't a weapon or a natural disaster, Jake said slowly. It's some kind of construction project, or reconstruction project, Jennifer agreed. Captain, I think someone is rebuilding something that was destroyed long ago, and the elders are terrified that we're going to find out what it is. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Kane had made a breakthrough. Working with the data from Captain Morrison's mission and the intelligence gathered by Colonel Price's teams, he had started to piece together a pattern that stretched across galactic history. The hyperspace network isn't random, Alex explained to the assembled council. It connects specific points throughout the galaxy in a pattern that's incredibly sophisticated. But here's the strange part. The elders never built new hyperspace routes. In 50,000 years of galactic dominance, they've only maintained and used routes that already existed. Admiral Hayes saw where this was leading. You think the First Builders created the hyperspace network? I think the First Builders created the entire galactic infrastructure, Alex replied. The hyperspace routes, the energy distribution systems, the communication networks, all of it. The elders didn't inherit this technology, they conquered it. And now something is activating systems that have been dormant for millions of years. Governor Diana Foster of the Europa settlements raised a troubling question. If that's true, then what happened to the First Builders? Did the elders destroy them all? Maybe, Raymond said. Or maybe some of them survived and they're finally coming back. The implications were staggering. If the elders had built their entire civilization on stolen technology and hidden genocide, then everything humanity thought they knew about galactic politics was wrong. The ancient, wise rulers who claimed to guide younger races toward enlightenment were actually conquerors who had spent 50 millennia covering up their crimes. Captain Morrison received the Council's preliminary findings through encrypted transmission. While his ships approached the edge of the anomaly, the dark space ahead didn't look threatening anymore. It looked like a door opening after being locked for countless ages. Commander Bennett, Jake called to his science officer, I want you to prepare for close-range scans of the anomaly, but keep our findings off the official channels. Something tells me we're about to discover things the elders really don't want us to know. Lisa nodded grimly. As Tara's voice and New Horizon moved closer to the expanding darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover secrets that would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. The elders had asked for human help. But Jake was beginning to suspect that what they really wanted was to make sure humans never learned the truth about what was really happening in the dark space ahead. Commander Lisa Bennett felt her breath catch as the research vessel Endeavour crossed into the anomaly. The darkness outside the viewports wasn't empty space, it was something else entirely. Patterns of light moved through it like circuit pathways, and the ship's instruments showed readings that shouldn't have been possible. "The space itself is different in here," reported engineer Marcus Johnson from his station. Marcus had worked with experimental physics for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for what they were seeing. "It's like someone rewrote the basic rules of how matter and energy interact." Pilot Amy Clark kept the ship steady as they moved deeper into the transformed space. Amy had flown through every kind of dangerous situation imaginable, from solar storms to asteroid fields. But this was unlike anything she had experienced. The ship moved smoothly, almost as if the space around them was guiding their passage. "I'm getting some kind of signal," Lisa announced from her science station. "It's not coming from any specific direction. It's like the space itself is trying to communicate with us." The signal resolved into patterns that gradually became understandable. Not words exactly, but concepts that appeared directly in their minds. "Welcome." Finally. So long waiting. The thoughts came with a sense of vast patience and gentle relief. "This is Commander Bennett of the human vessel Endeavour." Lisa spoke aloud, hoping whatever was communicating with them could understand. "Can you tell us what this place is?" The response came as a flood of images and concepts. A galaxy filled with countless civilizations working together in harmony. Technology used not for conquest but for creation and exploration. Worlds transformed into gardens. Species lifted from primitive conditions to become partners in a vast community of minds. Then came darker images. The arrival of the 12 races that would become the Elders. Their hunger for power and control. War spreading across the galaxy as they seized the peaceful civilization's technology and turned it toward domination. The systematic destruction of the first builders and the suppression of any records that might reveal the truth. "You are the first builders," Lisa said, understanding flooding through her. "Not all destroyed," came the response. "Some survived in hidden places in transformed space and the spaces between spaces, waiting for someone worthy to find us, waiting for someone who might choose differently than those who came before." A form began to materialize in the center of Endeavour's bridge. It was humanoid but seemed to be made of flowing light and energy. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of millions of years. "I am Keeper," it said. "I am the last guardian of what was and the first herald of what might be again. Your species was not expected, but you have shown promise. You think differently than those who destroyed us." Lisa stepped forward cautiously. "The Elders are afraid of you. They think you're trying to destroy the galaxy." Keeper's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "Destroy? No, reveal. This space is not an anomaly, it is a test. We left it as our final gift to the galaxy. A way to determine if any younger race might prove worthy of our true inheritance." Marcus looked up from his instruments. The readings show massive technological systems throughout this space. Construction on a scale that dwarfs anything the Elders have built. "The Elders built nothing," Keeper replied. "They took what we created and claimed it as their own. The hyperspace network, the energy distribution systems, the very foundations of galactic civilization, all of it came from us, but they used it for control instead of freedom, for domination instead of cooperation." Amy navigated the ship through corridors of transformed space that stretched for light years. Around them, vast structures became visible, not built from metal or stone, but constructed from organized space-time itself. It was technology beyond anything humanity had imagined possible. "Why now?" Lisa asked. "Why is this test activating after so long?" "Because the galaxy is ready," Keeper explained. "New races have emerged, species that might choose a different path than the Elders chose. Your humanity is one such race. You have shown innovation without conquest, curiosity without cruelty. You ask questions instead of demanding obedience." Back at Nexus Prime, the Elder Council was growing increasingly agitated. Captain Morrison's reports had become vague and unhelpful, providing just enough information to satisfy their demands while revealing nothing of substance. Elder Velthanor paced the council chamber with barely controlled fury. "The humans are hiding something," he declared to the assembled representatives. "Their ships have been in the anomaly for days, but they share nothing of value." Elder Zethmoran's warrior instincts were on full alert. "Perhaps it is time to remind them of their place in the galactic order." A show of force might encourage more cooperation. The Telnari Collective has attempted to probe their minds, added the hive mind representative, but the humans have developed some form of mental shielding. They are more independent than we realized. Elder Nisanda of the energy-based Cathara flickered with annoyance. Independence is dangerous in younger races. It leads to unpredictable behavior and challenges to proper authority. Velthanor made his decision. Send word to the human fleet. They have 72 hours to provide complete data on everything they have discovered in the anomaly, or they will face immediate consequences. Meanwhile, aboard Endeavor, Keeper was showing Lisa and her team the true scope of First Builder technology. The space around them had become a vast library of knowledge, with information stored in the quantum structure of space itself. Everything we learned in 10 million years of galactic civilization is here, Keeper explained. Technology that could end scarcity throughout the galaxy. Healing techniques that could eliminate disease and extend life indefinitely. Transportation methods that could reach other galaxies. Communication systems that could unite all conscious minds in voluntary cooperation. Why give this to us? Lisa asked. Why not keep it hidden until the elders are gone? Because that would make us no better than they are, Keeper replied. We will not impose our will on the galaxy, even for good purposes. The choice must be made freely by each race. Some will choose the path of the elders, seeking power and control. Others might choose our path, seeking cooperation and growth. The test reveals which choice each species will make when given the opportunity. Dr. Kane, working with the data transmitted from Endeavor through quantum channels that the elders couldn't intercept, made rapid progress in understanding First Builder science. The implications were staggering. Humanity could become completely self-sufficient, no longer dependent on elder-controlled trade routes or technology. More importantly, they could help other younger races achieve the same independence. On Earth, Admiral Hayes called an emergency session of the Space Council. The Elder ultimatum had arrived, demanding complete disclosure of all human discoveries within 72 hours, or face galactic isolation and economic blockade. They're not asking for our help, Admiral Hayes said grimly. They're demanding our submission. They want us to hand over First Builder technology so they can control it, like they've controlled everything else for 50,000 years. Governor Walsh raised the obvious concern. If we refuse, they'll cut us off from galactic society. No trade, no diplomacy, no access to the hyperspace network. Actually, Dr. Kane said with a slight smile, that might not be as big a problem as we thought. The First Builder archives contain complete specifications for hyperspace technology. We could build our own network, one that the elders couldn't control or shut down. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity could walk away from the elder system entirely, taking with them technology that would make them equals to civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for 50 millennia. Captain Morrison received Earth's decision through encrypted channels. Humanity would not surrender First Builder technology to the elders. Instead, they would make their own choice about how to use the knowledge they had discovered. As Endeavor prepared to return to human space carrying the greatest treasure in galactic history, Lisa looked back at the transformed space where Keeper waited. The First Builder had given them the ultimate gift, the freedom to choose their own path without interference from ancient powers who claimed to know better. The test was almost complete, and humanity was about to discover what it really meant to be free. The 72-hour deadline arrived with the precision of galactic clockwork. Elder Primus Velthanor stood in the main communication chamber of Nexus Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of Elder fleets throughout the galaxy. Behind him, the other Elder representatives waited in tense silence. Open a channel to the human homeworld, Velthanor commanded. The massive display activated, showing the emergency session of the Human Space Council in Geneva. Admiral Patricia Hayes sat at the head of the table, her expression calm but determined. Around her sat the governors of humanity's colonies and the leaders of the space fleet. Admiral Hayes, Velthanor began, his voice carrying the authority of 50,000 years of galactic dominance. The deadline has expired. Have you prepared the complete data files on your discoveries in the anomaly? Admiral Hayes met his gaze steadily. We have indeed made our decision, Elder Primus, but it is not the decision you expect. She stood slowly, and every human in the chamber rose with her. The simple gesture carried more weight than any elaborate ceremony could have. Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Elder Council, Admiral Hayes declared. We will no longer seek your approval for our actions, no longer abide by your regulations, and no longer pretend that 50,000 years of stagnation represents wisdom. The silence that followed was deafening. In the history of the Elder Council, no member race had ever voluntarily withdrawn. Species were admitted to the galactic community through Elder approval, and they remained under Elder guidance until the Elders decided otherwise. Elder Zethmoran was the first to find his voice. You cannot simply leave galactic society, Admiral. The consequences will be severe. Trade embargo, diplomatic isolation, restriction from hyperspace routes. Your colonies will be cut off from each other and from Earth. Governor Stephen Walsh of Mars stepped forward. We have considered those consequences, Elder Zethmoran. We have also considered the consequences of remaining under a system that treats us as children, despite our contributions to galactic civilization. This is madness. Elder Nisanda flickered with agitation. Younger races require guidance. Without Elder oversight, you will make mistakes that could threaten the entire galaxy. Dr. Alexander Kane activated his own display, showing detailed scans of First Builder technology. With respect, Elder Nisanda, your guidance has been based on stolen technology and hidden genocide. We have learned the truth about the First Builders and what really happened to them. The Elder representatives exchanged alarmed glances. This was their greatest fear, that the younger races would discover the foundation of lies upon which galactic civilization rested. Admiral Hayes continued her address. Humanity chooses freedom over security, growth over stagnation, cooperation over domination. We will build our own path among the stars, and we will welcome any species that wishes to join us in that endeavor. The transmission ended, leaving the Elder Council in chaos. For the first time in millennia, their authority had been directly challenged by a member race that chose to walk away rather than submit. Within hours, Elder fleets began moving toward human space. The blockade was swift and comprehensive, cutting off Earth, Mars, Europa, and the dozen other human colonies from each other, and from galactic trade routes. It should have been devastating. Instead, it lasted exactly 6 days before becoming irrelevant. Dr. Kane worked around the clock with the First Builder archives that Keeper had provided. The technology was incredibly advanced but surprisingly intuitive, as if it had been designed to be understood and used by any species that approached it with the right intentions. The hyperspace principle is completely different from what the Elders use, Kane explained to a gathering of human scientists and engineers. Their system requires massive installations and huge amounts of energy. The First Builder approach is elegant, efficient, and can be scaled down to individual ships. Within 48 hours, human engineers had constructed the first prototype hyperspace drive based on First Builder designs. It was smaller than a car engine but more powerful than the massive drives that powered Elder dreadnoughts. Captain Morrison took the upgraded Terra's voice on its first test flight, jumping instantly from Earth to Alpha Centauri without using any Elder infrastructure. The implications were staggering. Humanity no longer needed Elder permission to travel between stars. But the transportation breakthrough was only the beginning. First Builder technology addressed every aspect of civilization, matter conversion systems that could transform any element into any other, making resource scarcity obsolete, energy generation techniques that tapped directly into quantum fluctuations, providing unlimited clean power, healing technology that could repair any damage to living tissue, effectively ending disease and dramatically extending lifespan. Most importantly, the archives contained communication systems that could reach any point in the galaxy instantly, without using Elder-controlled networks. Commander Lisa Bennett, now serving as humanity's first ambassador to other non-Elder species, began making contact with races throughout the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Kreshta were an insect-like species that had been kept isolated in a single star system for centuries, told by the Elders that they were too primitive for broader contact. When Lisa showed them that faster-than-light travel was possible for any species, they embraced the opportunity for freedom with enthusiastic clicking and buzzing. The aquatic Murthani had been forced to trade their artistic creations for basic technology, kept dependent on Elder generosity for their survival. When they learned they could achieve technological independence, Their songs of joy could be heard across their homeworld's oceans. The energy-based Lumen had been told that their non-physical nature made them unsuitable for full galactic citizenship. When Lisa demonstrated that First Builder communication systems could interface directly with energy-based consciousness, they blazed with excitement at finally being treated as equals. Within months, the Free Worlds Coalition was born. Unlike the Elder Council's rigid hierarchy, it was a true partnership of equals. Each member species retained complete sovereignty over their internal affairs, while sharing knowledge and resources freely. Decisions were made by consensus rather than decree, and no single species claimed authority over the others. The coalition's growth was explosive. Species that had been isolated for millennia suddenly found themselves part of a vast community of minds working together toward common goals. Worlds that had struggled with scarcity became self-sufficient overnight. Races that had been enemies under elder manipulation discovered they could cooperate when their basic needs were met. The elders watched their carefully constructed system collapse with growing panic. Their trade networks emptied as member species achieved independence. Their political influence evaporated as younger races realized they had alternatives. Their military dominance became meaningless when potential enemies could simply move beyond their reach. Elder Primus Velthanor made one last desperate attempt at negotiation. He requested a meeting with human leadership, hoping to find some way to bring humanity back into the galactic fold before their example inspired complete rebellion. The meeting took place on a neutral space station in unclaimed territory. Velthanor arrived with a delegation representing all 12 elder species, expecting to face Admiral Hayes and the human leadership. Instead, he found Admiral Morrison waiting for him. Jake had been promoted to command the Free World's fleet, and his quiet confidence spoke of a man who no longer feared elder displeasure. Admiral Morrison, Velthanor began carefully. Surely we can find a solution that benefits everyone. The Galactic Order has maintained peace for 50,000 years. Why destroy something that works? Jake considered the question seriously before answering. Because it doesn't work, Elder Primus. It only works for the elders. You built your peace on the bones of the first builders and maintained it by keeping everyone else dependent and isolated. We can offer humanity equal status on the council, Velthanor said desperately. Full voting rights, representation in all decisions, access to our most advanced technologies. You're missing the point, Jake replied gently. We're not interested in reforming your system. We've moved beyond it entirely. The meeting ended with no agreement, no compromise, no return to the old ways. Humanity had made their choice, and they were building something entirely new. The elders returned to their ancient stations, still arguing among themselves about protocols and precedents, while the galaxy's younger races explored new frontiers where old hierarchies held no power. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Elder Council, and the galaxy looked completely different. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Horizons, the first space station built entirely with First Builder technology. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible under Elder rule. The Free Worlds Coalition had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations. What had started as a handful of rebellious species had become a thriving community of over 200 civilizations. Each brought their own knowledge, culture, and perspective to the collective effort of building something better than what came before. Dr. Jennifer Walsh approached Jake with her latest report. Jennifer now served as the Coalition's chief archaeologist, leading teams that were uncovering the true history of the galaxy. Her discoveries had shattered every assumption about how galactic civilization had developed. We've found 17 more First Builder archive sites, Jennifer announced. Each one contains complete technological databases and historical records. The picture that's emerging is incredible, Jake. The galaxy was once home to millions of cooperative civilizations, all working together to explore and create. Jake looked out at the bustling activity around New Horizons. Ships from the crystalline Velnati were docked next to vessels from the gaseous Othmari. Engineers from a dozen species worked side by side on projects that combined the best knowledge from each culture. It was exactly what the first builders had envisioned millions of years ago. Any word from the Keeper? Jake asked. Jennifer smiled. He visited the archive site on Zirion last week. He says he's pleased with our progress but reminds us that this is still just the beginning. The first builders left instructions for reaching other galaxies when we're ready. The transformation hadn't been limited to technology. Dr. Alexander, Kane's teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding how consciousness itself worked. The first builders hadn't just been advanced engineers. They had been philosophers and artists who understood that true progress came from the development of mind and spirit as well as science, and technology commander Lisa Bennett had been working with representatives from hundreds of species to develop new forms of government and social organization. The old model of dominant species ruling over subordinate ones had been replaced by networks of cooperation where each civilization contributed according to its strengths and received support for its needs. The most amazing thing, Lisa reported during her weekly briefing to the Coalition Council, is how quickly species adapt once they're freed from artificial scarcity and competition. The Kreshta have become incredible artists, now that they don't have to spend all their time worrying about basic survival. The Murthani have developed new forms of mathematics that make our old systems look primitive. Back on Earth, President Victoria Miller was preparing for her historic address to the planet. Today marked the second anniversary of humanity's withdrawal from the Elder Council, and the results spoke for themselves. Earth's population was healthier, more prosperous, and more unified than ever before. The elimination of scarcity through first builder technology had ended most forms of conflict and allowed human creativity to flourish in ways never before possible. My fellow humans, President Miller began her broadcast. 2 years ago, we made a choice that seemed risky and uncertain. Today we can see that it was the best decision in human history. We chose freedom over security, cooperation over domination, and growth over stagnation. The broadcast was transmitted throughout Coalition space, reaching billions of beings from hundreds of species. For many of them, it had become an annual celebration of the day the galaxy began to change. We have learned that true strength comes not from controlling others, but from empowering them, not from hoarding knowledge, but from sharing it freely, not from building walls, but from building bridges between the stars. Meanwhile, in the old sectors of Elder Space, a very different scene was playing out. Nexus Prime, once the center of galactic power, was now largely empty. Most of the younger species had joined the Coalition, leaving the Elders to govern over increasingly smaller territories. Elder Primus Velthanor sat alone in the council chamber that had once hosted representatives from thousands of worlds. Now only the 12 original Elder species remained, and even some of their own younger generations were questioning the old ways. The reports from Elder Intelligence Services painted a grim picture. Coalition technology continued to advance at an incredible pace, combining first builder knowledge with fresh perspectives from dozens of species. Their exploration ships had reached the edge of the galaxy and were preparing expeditions to neighboring star systems. Most troubling of all, they seemed genuinely happy. Perhaps, suggested Elder Nisanda during one of their increasingly rare meetings, we should consider joining this coalition. Our knowledge and experience could be valuable to them. Never, Velthanor replied firmly. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. If the younger races cannot see that, then they will learn through experience why Elder guidance is necessary. But even as he spoke, Velthanor knew his words rang hollow. The younger races weren't struggling without Elder guidance, they were thriving. They had solved problems that the Elders had considered unsolvable, achieved cooperation that the Elders had thought impossible, and created prosperity that the Elders had never imagined. Back aboard New Horizons, Jake received a visitor he hadn't expected. The Keeper materialized in his office, the first builder's energy form shimmering with what seemed like satisfaction. It is time for my final duty, the Keeper announced. The test is complete. Your species and your allies have proven worthy of our legacy. Jake felt a sense of loss at the Keeper's words. The ancient being had become a friend and mentor to humanity during their transition to independence. You're leaving us? My purpose was to guard the knowledge until someone worthy could be found to carry it forward, the Keeper explained. That task is complete. The galaxy has new guardians now, beings who will use the knowledge wisely and share it freely. The Keeper's form began to fade, but his voice remained clear. Remember, Admiral Morrison, true power is not the ability to control others. True power is the ability to help others control themselves. The first builders learned this lesson too late to save themselves, but you have learned it in time to save the galaxy. As the Keeper vanished for the final time, Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity and their allies were now the inheritors of the greatest civilization in galactic history, but more importantly, they were the ones who would decide what to do with that inheritance. The answer had already become clear through their actions. They would do what the first builders had originally intended: share knowledge freely, cooperate rather than compete, and explore the universe together rather than fight over pieces of it. Months passed, and the first coalition expedition ships began their journey to nearby galaxies. They carried with them not weapons of conquest but tools of cooperation. First contact protocols that emphasized respect and mutual benefit rather than dominance. Technologies that could lift any civilization from scarcity to abundance. Most importantly, they carried the hard-won wisdom that true strength came from empowering others rather than controlling them. The elder species remained in their original territories, gradually adapting to a galaxy where they were no longer the dominant power. Some, particularly among their younger generations, began to embrace the coalition's principles. Others clung to the old ways, governing over ever-shrinking domains while the rest of the galaxy moved forward without them. On Earth, children learned about the day humanity walked away from the Elder Council, not as a moment of rebellion, but as a moment of maturation. The day when humanity stopped asking for permission to grow and started taking responsibility for their own future. Admiral Morrison, now elderly but still sharp, often stood on the observation decks of coalition ships and watched the busy traffic of a truly free galaxy. Ships from hundreds of worlds, crews of dozens of species, all working together toward goals that none of them could have achieved alone. Humanity had walked away from the elders, leaving them in silence. In that silence, the elders finally understood what they had lost when they chose control over cooperation millions of years ago. But for humanity and their allies, the silence was filled with the sound of new worlds being born, new discoveries being made, and new friendships being forged among the stars. The galaxy remained vast and full of possibilities. The difference now was that those possibilities belonged to everyone willing to reach for them, rather than just to those who claimed the right to control them.